my spooky friends, and welcome to another episode of Dairyland Frights, the paranormal podcast that covers everything spooky, creepy, and mysterious in the Midwest and beyond. And I am so lucky tonight because I have a very special guest on, and she's done so many things. I will let her tell you about it, and I'll talk a little bit about it. But Corbie Mitleid, is that how you pronounce it?
Mitleid.
Mitleid.
Yes.
Thank you for being on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. So when I said you did so many things, this is coming just off your website because I was just absolutely fascinated by it. I got lost in it to be not lost as in lost as like, this is really interesting stuff. So let me tell you a little bit about Corbie. So you're a certified tarot master, is that correct?
Yes, that is.
You are a psychic, a
Yes.
medium,
Yes.
a teacher,
Yes.
ordained minister.
All of that.
I love it. I love it. So one of the things here, you have been doing this again for 50 years. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I'm going to be 70 next month.
Well, I love that. That is love. And you obviously have clients worldwide. We were kind of talking. We had to switch some things around because she had a Patreon, which she can talk about later, about, with her clients and everything like that. But this is just amazing. I don't know how you have time, but I appreciate your time for being on here. How did you get started in this? I mean, I know you've probably been asked that a million times, but why did you decide that this is some of the, not only using your gifts to do these things?
Well, yes, this is what I call one of the two 30-second elevator speeches. When I was 9, I read a book called The Witch Family by Eleanor Estes and went, ooh, there's magic in the world. I want to go find it. In 1973, I was a senior in high school working part-time at Spencer Gifts. That's the year that Live and Let Die came out with Jane Seymour, the fortune teller. They had the James Bond 007 tarot deck, and I bought it because we were all hippies then. You had your elephant bell-bottoms, your David Crosby fringe jacket, and your deck. Now, 5 years later, everyone else had moved on to roller skates and disco balls, but I loved the cards. So for 20 years, I read for friends, making sure that my ego was out of the way and my message was clear. Then all of a sudden, in the early 90s, I could do hands-on healing and talk to dead people with no training. That's when the universe handed me my draft notice, and I took it. So I did psychic work part-time, meanwhile being an actress, an author, an inspirational speaker, a video producer, a legal assistant, an executive recruiter, a writer for the graphic novel series ElfQuest, but always psychic on the side. Until 9/11, as we watched the towers burn, I turned to my husband and I said, I need to do the psychic work full-time. People need to know there are other answers out there. He said, I believe in you, go do it. So since then, it's 6 days a week, read 1,000 people a year. Before COVID, I was on the road 45 weekends a year because this is what I feel is important to do.
I love that. And I got to give credit. What you just said you were doing, I'm getting tired already. I mean, that's amazing. I really appreciate you using your gifts because a lot of people may not doing that. But guess what? Corbie is not only all those things, okay? She's also an author and she has a podcast. So, wow. So you have written a number of different books.
3 books.
Can you talk about some of these books and kind of give my spooky friends kind of an idea of if they would get this book, what they'd be looking at?
Okay. The book that they would be most interested in, probably, leaning over here, is, I know it's backwards, The Psychic Yellow Brick Road, How to Find the Real Wizards and Avoid the Flying Monkeys. Now, this book is not written to teach you how to be a psychic. There are millions of books out there like that. But this book was inspired by a 250-person psychic fair I did in Toronto about 20 years ago. Now, when you have a fair that big, no matter how good the promoter is, they can't vet everybody. So there was a woman walking down the aisles looking at each of the booths, and a fake gypsy runs out of her booth and grabs her arm. You no need to pay $30, $40, $50. I will read your palm for 10. Takes the woman into the booth. About 15 minutes later, a bunch of us see the woman leaving crying hysterically. We run over to see what happened. The gypsy had told her that there was a family curse, and if she didn't burn 400 specially blessed candles in the Roman Catholic Church, and the gypsy would do it for $1 a candle, her entire family was going to die in a car accident, and she bought it. This book came from that specifically to show people what we can do, what we can't, what questions are appropriate to ask, which aren't, red flags when you should get up and run. And I don't care if you never come to me. If you buy that book and it keeps you safe no matter which intuitive you talk to, then I did my job.
Yeah, I love that. So that was one of my questions here. How do you address the skepticism, which you kind of brought up a little bit from clients, right?
I
Because
love
there's
it.
going to be, you love it, but why do you love it, Corbie?
Because it means they're not what I call cosmic muffins. Those are the ones that believe whatever the psychic says, it's going to happen, and they don't take charge of their own lives. They're people. I have had a woman come up to me and say, okay, I need to sell my house. I need the angels to tell me what color to paint it, what kind of furniture to put in it, who I should, and I'm sorry, but that's you can get from using your brain. And then they ask things like, well, I know that this person is cheating on their taxes. Should I say anything, or will God make them suffer anyway? Please, get a clue. So when a skeptic comes to me, I say, wonderful, sit. And I remind them that even the best of us are only 85% accurate. The only one 100% accurate is God, and God is not doing psychic fairs this week. Thank you. I will usually nail it, hit them with something they could not know. And then they relax. The key is I take my work seriously, but me not so much. So there's no ego balloon for them to puncture.
Yeah,
That's it.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I bet, because I've talked to other mediums and psychics, I'm guessing you get, tell me lottery numbers, tell me when my love is going to come into my life, tell me, like, was my future hold.
Yes.
How do you address that?
When they ask for their lottery numbers, I look at them and say, me first. And anyway, if your psychic's not driving a Lexus, how do you know they know?
Yeah.
Now, there are numerology ways of giving you lucky numbers, but it's not going to make you in the lottery.
Mm-hmm.
These may be fortunate.
Yeah.
There is always the does Bruce love me question. Always.
Yes.
So if someone comes to me about that, I have a 5-card spread that I do. The person sitting with me, their love object, the relationship of the two of them, what they need to know, and best possible outcome. If they then look at me and say, I still don't know what to do, I do what I call the 3 threes. 3 cards for status quo. They just deal with a relationship. 3 cards for drawing a line in the sand. You have to do serious counseling. And 3 cards if they leave. Now, the key is their free will means I have to zip it. I may see that leaving is the right thing to do. But if she looks at those cards and goes, I guess I'll stick it out for a while, then I have to let her do that. The only difference is if she tells me she's being gaslit or abused, then my reader's license goes in the back and my reverend collar comes on, and I tell her how she can safely get herself out of a damaging situation. Yeah. But other than that, it's her choice.
Yeah, I love it. So that kind of really piggybacks into my next question. So kind of talk to just really a little bit about it right now. But like, what are your ethical guidelines when you're providing readings, and like, how do you handle the sensitive situations like grief or trauma? Because obviously you've had people come to you and say, oh my God, my grandma just died, my mom just died, my husband just died, I feel I'm cursed, I feel there's demons, I feel there's this, I feel there's that. Like, what do you do, Corbie? How do you handle that?
Well, I tell them the demons and curses are not my job, but I do know a couple of people that I send them to. It's important that any intuitive, if it ain't in your wheelhouse, don't take the money. But because I am a reverend, I have dealt with that kind of thing in my own life, frankly. 3 bouts of breast cancer, 2 divorces, rape, poverty, and abuse, and I'm still floating.
Mm.
I've seen all
Yeah.
of it. So there is nothing that's going to surprise me.
Yeah.
When they know that I will not judge them, they relax. I also tell my people, don't ask yes or no questions, ask how, because that keeps you from the fake gypsies. If you said to me, is my new business going to succeed? The fake gypsy would say, oh, there's a family curse here. You have to burn this candle. When I teach you to ask how, then I can do something like my multiple card entrepreneur spread. Card for you, card for the energy around the business, the brick and mortar location, how to market it, clients, competition, staff, finances, what you need to know, best possible outcome. It's yours to do. I give you directions, but you have to choose whether you want to follow them. That's how you can keep your ethics straight.
Yeah. And I love that because, like you're just talking about the gypsy telling the 400 candles and it's going to cost this much. That's typically, unfortunately, and I'm speaking to other mediums and psychics and so on and so forth, that's what they get, and it's a hard thing to get over with a client because I talk to, just talking to me, all the mediums and psychics, including you I've spoken to, seem very ethical, have very high integrity, have been through stuff like you have or close to it. So they're not going to try to, like, if you're making a quick buck, this isn't the thing to be in for it, right? If you're trying to make a quick buck, this is like maybe get something else, right? If someone's thinking that, right? If someone says that to you.
Yes, ethics are important. All of this stuff was just landed on me without any training, and it was very clear that the universe wanted me to do this in service. So when you realize it's not you, you're just the tool that spirit is using, your ego kind of sits by the board. But if all you want to do is make the buck, then you'll make all the claims and you'll be like every other snake oil salesman. You'll be like the wizard in The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, absolutely. So has there ever been a talking to, like I said, other mediums, one of my favorite stories here, maybe this has happened to you, is a woman kind of like you. She was kind of, given these gifts and everything like that. And one day, this older man kept showing up. She kept seeing this older man, and he would say, please tell my daughter I'm fine. I'm okay. She's okay. And then she got connected with him and learned a little bit more and, did all these different things. And she found out that down the road was the woman she was supposed to talk to. So she came in, she said, it was a really awkward conversation. I knocked on the door and I said, hi, I'm Julie. I know you're not going to believe this, but it is your father telling me he's okay. And, of course, it was like, okay, who you are and what's going on. But eventually they started talking and, she learned, oh, how'd you know that? Right. My dad smoked this certain brand of cigar, or he drank this certain beer or whatever. But have you ever had that? Have you ever had a spirit reach out to you, whether good or bad, and say, like, could you tell this person that? I don't know, maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing.
Because that is the agreement I have with my guides. There are too many psychics who do that when it's not welcome, and I call that a drive-by psychic shooting. That's the kind of fake stuff on Long Island Medium where she walks up to a stranger in the grocery store and gives them a dire message. That's all fake. Because legally, her PR team has to go and scout out all the grocery stores and pick one. They have to talk to the regional manager. They have to interview the supposed guests and have them sign legal model releases, and then they rehearse it 6 times. But a lot of people think that is the way you're supposed to do it, and it's not. And I'll give you a good example. Most of your listeners probably have heard of Lilydale, which is an amazing spiritualist community in Western New York. It's world famous. People who are from Lilydale, if they had a message, would walk up to this woman and say, excuse me, but my name is Reverend Sam, and I am from Lilydale. I believe I have a message for you. May I come to you? Those are the magic words. May I come to you? And if the person says yes, they will deliver the message. But if the person says no, They nod and they walk away knowing spirit will get the information to this person in a way they are willing to receive it. It's never I have to tell you this by anybody ethical.
Yeah. Interesting. That's really interesting. So let me ask you this then. When you are talking to, let's say, spirits guides or spirits or however you want to phrase it, like, what are some of the common challenges you face when connecting with it? Is there anything you do differently, or like I said, is there any times you just had a real challenge?
Well, always. There are times when you will read for someone and they'll tell you that you're wrong and you will be right. The example I use is a woman I read at a place where I went every 3 times a year. And I saw a couple of challenges for her, which I told her about. And she got up, she insulted me, and she walked away. Well, okay, fine. The next time I was in that area, she was the first person to sit down. And she acknowledged that she had been really rude last time because I had told her that I saw her taking in a boarder. And then she was probably going to want to sell her house. And she said but then my daughter moved home because she was pregnant. And now I'm going to sell my house to raise my grandson. And I still don't like you, but I want to know what else you see. Don't shoot the messenger.
Yeah.
But for the rest of it, no. It's easiest for me with mediumship because I don't fish. I go after specifics. For instance, my father, Harold Markham McAllister, who died in 2014 at the age of 80. If somebody gives me that information, that pushes me right into them. And I will then tell them everything I see. And my guides do play charades. They smoked, they had surgery, there was an accident. Sometimes I'll get pet phrases, sometimes I'll get gestures. But it has to be anywhere between 4 and 6, oh my God, you couldn't know that things. Then I open up the door and they talk directly to their person. I tell them exactly what they're saying. I mean, there are things like there was a man who wanted to speak to his father who had died 3 months before. And I said, I'm getting a big red bow tie and it's velvet. And he immediately broke down because that was the tie that his father wore, with his tux that had been presented to the son a couple of weeks before at Christmas. That's not, it's vague. It's a rose. He loves you.
Yeah.
So those are the kinds of things. When I get them with mediumship, yes, we know that we're getting the right person.
Yeah. So when you are preparing for a reading, Corbie, like, is there something you need to do before or after the session once you're talking to that person?
Actually, I've been doing this for so long. My guides are always here, my wingmen. I refer to them that way because they were pilots when we were all pilots in a war 100 years ago, and we all flew together. So there they are. It's a matter of making sure that the person with me is comfortable. When you sit with me, first thing I'm going to say to you is, what's the most important thing you want to walk out of here knowing? Because I do so many different things. I don't want to spend time on tarot and telling you about your life if what is really bothering you is I have this obsession or phobia that I can't get out of my mind, and that's a past life thing. I want to go and do the past life stuff first. I'm fast. I tell people when they first sign up to have a reading with me, do not buy more than half an hour because you won't need it. And 95% of the time I'm right. So it's important that the person is comfortable, that they know they're heard, and they know that I respect what their questions are.
Yeah. And that kind of reminds me of you're kind of talking about this a little bit, but how do you discern between a person's own thoughts and the messages coming through from a spirit? Couldn't that be a little confusing for you when you're doing a reading?
No, because when they want me to get a spirit guide, literally, it's, if you will, turn on that part of my brain. And the guides I get are pretty specific. So and they're different from your dead person. When it is a past life, I think I've only gotten that somebody was a famous person 3 times, and they weren't Frank Sinatra or something. One of them was Mercy Otis Warren, who was best friends with Abigail Adams during the Revolutionary War. One person was Nellie Bly, who was a very famous investigative journalist at the beginning of the 20th century, and I hadn't seen a picture of the person that I was reading, but I found out later you put her picture and Nellie Bly's picture together and they were twins.
Wow.
And my favorite story on that is there was a woman who loved black and white photography. Everyone tried to get her to do color, but it was black and white. And what I discovered is she was someone called Jacob Riis, R-I-I-S. And if you've ever seen those turn of the 20th century tenement pictures in New York and Boston that are so...
Yeah.
That was Jacob Riis, and she had done those pictures. So she now has a very thriving business where she lives because she went with what she knew, which is black and white photography. But now she understands why.
Interesting. Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of staying on that topic a little bit. Could you explain, Corbie, how would you explain spirit guides? Because one thing I've noticed from talking to all different people, they all have, I wouldn't say different views of it, but, how would you explain to someone, who says, I don't have a spirit guide? What are you talking about?
I would look at them and smile and say, you think you're smart enough to get it all done on your own? No, we have pea brains. So everybody's got at least one guardian angel that's with us from birth to death. But our spirit guides grow and change as we do. I talk about my wingmen. They were my first spirit guides. I now work with a higher level angel. But everybody's got guides, and they can be dead humans, ETs, animal guides, energy signatures, avatars, angels. Generally, whatever I get for them will make sense to them. And they have conversations with the guides so they understand what they're here to do and why.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's really interesting because I found out I have 4 spirit guides.
No
and
surprise.
I thought that was really, really interesting. Now, here's something, and I'm not trying to make light of it or anything like that, but for about 3 or 4 years in a row, I just had the worst things happen to me. Like I was in a car accident. My wife and I almost got divorced. My kids were sick. I was sick. Like all this stuff, one after another, after another, after another, after another, right? And I'm not complaining because I came through it. I'm a survivor. My family's a survivor. But there are times of weakness where I go, hey, where were you guys? Or women or avatars or angels. Like I'm suffering. Like I was thinking I was so depressed, Corbie, that I thought about taking my own life. And I've been totally forthright with people because people who listen to this podcast, if maybe they're at that level, right, or at that point in their life where they're like, why, everything doesn't work out, and you tell me I have spirit guides, like I don't get it. Like, why aren't they
They're
helping
not
me?
here to save you from karma. They are not here to save you from life lessons. Okay? They're here for specific things. There was a car accident where I should have died, but basically, black ice under snow, overcorrected the car, took down a tree, a telephone pole, flipped the car, electrical wires on it. I wasn't wearing a seatbelt. Walked out with a couple of bruises. That's a spirit guide. That's an angel because it was not my time to go. I had work to do. But if in your pre-birth planning session, which touches on the work I did with Robert Schwartz, you decide that you are going to have a situation with a very dysfunctional family and an alcoholic mother and a father who doesn't defend you, and this sets up a tipping point where you can go in 2 directions. Either you've got the lesson or you didn't. Your spirit guides will not interfere because this is what your higher self, where soul has set up as learning for this lifetime. Also, looking at the divorce thing, you don't know, were you with your wife in another life? Were you even same gender, same relationship? Did you have an unbalanced energy that needs realignment this time? Karma is not just bad and good. Karma is 5 things: healing, service, contrast, unbalanced energy, and healing of beliefs.
See, that's what I've been hearing. That kind of makes sense. So my question then is, again, if a client comes to you and is seeking answers, because I'm sure you have this, again, like we talked about all the time, about a specific event or person, but let's say that spirit isn't ready to communicate. for whatever reason. How do you handle that? And how do you keep the person there and get frustrated? Like, hey, I'm
If they
coming
want
to
to
you,
talk to a
Corbie, for
dead
this.
person and I can't get them, I
Yeah,
remind them that we're only 85% accurate, and the dead person has a choice whether to connect or not. Could be that I'm just not the right medium. It could be that they are doing something on the astral. Could be that they know that contacting their live person isn't good. I mean, there are some people that always come to me and want to talk to their same dead person all the time.
yeah,
And that is not healthy. So after about 3 times, I kind of just say, okay, we're done. I'm like a good bartender. I cut them off because
nice.
the dead person is dead and has gone on
Yeah,
to
yeah,
do other things, and they have to learn to go and do other things while they are still on earth.
yeah,
Sometimes you have to do a little tough love.
yeah. I agree. I agree with that fully because again, some of it is moving on. I know people want closure, whatever you want to call it. And I know it's hard. When my mom died, she was a very important part of the family, extremely important. Like everyone loved my mom. And it was just really hard when she left. Just knowing, I told everybody, I said, my mom's still here. She's still guiding us and everything because I know she is. Because that's the kind of, my mom gave of herself first. She put people in front of her at a cost, I felt.
Yes. Yes.
But that's the way person she was. And I still feel her spirit and I feel everything about her. When I'm thinking through things or going through things, I know my mom she's like, okay, everything's be okay kind of attitude. Not talking to me that way, but the feeling I get, right? Yeah,
Yes.
kind of a difference.
Yes.
Like, yeah. Um, so here's the thing that this might be an interesting question for you because I always get interesting answers. So what is being you're a reverend and everything, what is your personal belief system about the afterlife? And how does that influence your mediumship or your being a reverend or just all the things in your life?
Well, one of the first things I do is I ask people, give your dead person 90 days to get up there, sign the guest register, unpack the bag, get the tour, because it is important that they have the time to do their life review. Now, the life review is simply that everything good you ever did in your life, you relive it and you get to feel what other people felt when you did it for them, whether it was gratitude or surprise or whatever. Also, when you have to review the things you did that were negative, you must feel the sorrow, the anger, the rage, the bewilderment as if it was done to you. That's what hell is. But when you're done, you're done. And then the spirit goes on to decide, does it want to reincarnate? Does it want to do further work on the astral? What does it want to do? And so if we're constantly badgering them in that initial period, it's like the little kid that keeps tugging onto mommy's coat. It distracts them. It's not a loving thing to do. So that's how I explain that. When people do come back to visit, my father was a wonderful doctor, and sometimes when I do a medical reading, he'll come in. What he comes in with is his compassion, his humor, his wonderful medical incisive knowledge, but the less than good qualities, anxiety, things like that served a purpose when he was in the body, they're nowhere to be found. They were completely done away with once he crossed over. So the soul is all the good things we are. The personality are all the things that we have to learn with, but they're not the best things in the world, and they get dumped when we die.
Yeah. So what do you do to a client who says basically, oh, we're just food for worms? There is no heaven, there is no hell, there is no Valhalla, there is no Shangri-La. Come on, Corbie. We're food for worms.
You may be right. We won't know
Okay.
until we get there. All I know
Right.
is that I've had enough experiences that for me, that doesn't ring true. There's no sense in trying to argue with them or get them to believe your side because they just don't want to. So, basically my shorthand is to smile at them and say, well, blessings on your journey.
Yeah, I love that. And one of the things, though, I know a lot of people struggle with, and I guess this is kind of, I don't know, you deal with philosophy and things like that, but like, how do I be a good person? How do I know? Like, I used to be a real religious person, very religious. Kind of gone away from that, to be honest with you, because I'm more into free will and deciding things, because I can't be a good person all the time. There are going to be times I screw up, I'm mean, I say dumb things that make people angry with me. But is that going to stop me from getting, I don't know, to wherever that is, a good place? I mean, how do you deal with that if people are like, I can't do that? Are you crazy?
We are down here to learn, because there is a lot you can learn in this duality dimensional body that you can't learn upstairs. Robert Schwartz uses the idea of the white room. If you walk into a white room, white curtains, white carpet, white furniture, a piano with only white keys, you're wearing white, you have no idea what purple is. Eskimos have 250 words for snow, not one for palm trees. We come down here with the ability to make quote unquote mistakes so we can learn, so we can see the duality. So, the other way I explain it is when people are saying, well, is this religion right or that one? God owns the grocery store. He does not care if you come in through the floors, the deli, or health and beauty aids. Just get in there. We figure out religion because we need to have something. But when you think about the fact that we are just 8 billion little cockroaches on the surface of this insignificant planet in an insignificant solar system at the bad end of a mediocre galaxy, you realize we cannot possibly understand the smallest thing about God. So a lot of people make up, well, he's a magic donkey in the sky.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I tell people, I don't care if you're Christian, Jewish, Buddhist, Muslim, pagan, or believe in Ralph the Wonder Dog. I don't. Just know that somebody up there loves you, wants the best for you, and is willing to work with you. That's all you need.
Yeah, I love that message. That is a great message. So have you ever, though, kind of sticking with this, have you ever, declined to answer a question if you feel it's not appropriate to share the information from a spirit with a client?
No, but what I will not do is what I call remote spying. That's when, let's say, John and Mary are dating. They can ask about each other with me when they're dating. If they break up, John cannot ask about Mary. Mary cannot ask about John, because then it is intruding. So the example I give is a woman who came to me and said, I want to know where my husband is sleeping with his mistress. I said, I'm sorry, I don't do remote spying. Well, can you tell me how many people he slept with? No, I don't do remote spying. Boy, you're worthless. Well, is he sick? Is he going to die and leave me his money? At which point I just said, I'm sorry, Mrs. McAllister, we're not connecting. And she got up and left, and, I gave her money back, but because that's part of the ethical thing. That's part of having your boundaries.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that because, again, like you said, Corbie, I mean, you're only 85% correct?
Even the best of us are only 85%.
You're right. Good day. Whatever you want to say, right? And there's I don't know, life is so random to me. Now, I know I've had arguments with philosophers and everything. I feel life is completely random because there's some things in my life, like I always use the example, going to work, okay? So going to work, you don't know, first of all, if you're going to wake up, right? You could die in your sleep. That could happen. Hopefully it doesn't, but it could. And then when you get out of bed, let's say you stub your toe on the bed frame. Okay, that sucks. And then you get in the shower and your hot water heater's out. So you took a cold shower. Then you try to start your car won't start. And you get to work late and your boss fires you because whatever reason. So I'm like, part of that I understand is like, how can someone say like, well, that's going to happen to you next week, John. You got to do this, this, and this, right? I just find that fascinating.
Well, the thing is, I agree with you about free will, but remember also, we do come in with a pre-birth plan. The way I explain that is that's like choosing your college major. It's going to be a physics major. But you can get through college taking gut courses or double major plus lab. That's free will. You can either do the smart thing or the dumb thing. But either way, you are going to die having learned what your spirit guide wanted you to know, what your soul wanted you to know. So you'll graduate with your degree. Depends on how rough you want to make it.
Yeah.
But that's why when people say, but I thought we have free will, and you're talking about pre-birth planning, I say, yes, we have both.
Yeah, I like that. That, and I think that's very much true. I think that's something that I've kind of seen. Speaking of that, just a personal thing that I'm kind of curious about, and again, I'm a little naive on it. This is why I have you on the show. One of the things, I don't know if you still or you even at all deal with aura, and let me explain. This is always I thought was weird about me, and I'm sure it's about other people too.
Mm-hmm.
Like I will meet people and I will connect with them like that. I mean, it was just, hey, like we've been together for 10 years. And then other people I will meet, Corbie, and they do not like me for whatever reason. And they give me like dirty looks. And I try to get to know them and everything. They don't want to have anything to do with me. And I know this is a really silly question, but why does that happen? Like, I don't understand.
It is not your aura, it's personality. It happens with all of us. All right.
Okay.
The first that you were talking about is what I call a click and lock friendship. And it's very possible that these were people that we did know in a past life, or we arranged to meet in this one when we were planning what we were going to do down here. And there are some people that your souls may be fine with each other, but the personalities are like this. All my life, I have been a charismatic. That means I walk into a room 3 feet before I walk into a room. That's why I was a professional actress. It's just my nature. And some people adore that, and some people, it just rubs them the wrong way. Even when I haven't said anything to them, I'm just me. So that's one of the reasons that you can't have an ego that depends on how other people view you, because that will set you up for failure every single time.
Yeah,
you're just you.
Absolutely.
Do what you need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know this sounds corny, but I say this all the time is you have to love yourself first. Like that's one thing I learned. Like some people, oh, so and so doesn't like me and it really bugs me, so I'm going to go out and buy them lunch, or I'm going to go and you do something random act of kindness, which is fine. You can do that. But I'm like, they don't like you. Why are you trying to no, just be yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a weird guy and I'm a nerdy guy, and that's who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I say I have a very dark humor, and that's the way I am, and I'm not going to change. So, and people who have been friends with me for years and who have just become new friends, they're like, they'll tell people. They'll be like, yeah, he's a little weird, but he's a really nice guy. He's a good guy. You'll like him. You know what I mean? I think that's really hard for someone coming to you might say to you, like, Corbie, how do I change myself? Like, I don't have any
First
friends.
thing I would say
don't have
is,
anything.
why do you believe you need to change?
Yeah, right?
See, that's part of the reverend thing, because when we harshly judge ourselves like that, we need to ask ourselves what I call the 3 most important questions in the world. What am I X about? X is whatever emotion you're having. Why am I X about that? And the question we never ask, what do I think would happen if I stopped being X about that? So, what are you upset about? People seem to be weirded out by my personality. Why does that upset you? And then we go through it. And then finally, it's what do you think would happen if you stopped being upset with how people react to you? And that opens up your ability to change.
That's interesting. So, one of the things, I like I said, I love this because I think what's really good is for people to understand is if you're going to change, maybe you want to look at it first, right? Because maybe you're not changing for the right reasons. There are certain things you might want to change, like, well, I want to lose 20 pounds, or I want to quit
That's
smoking.
a different
or
thing than
That's
changing
a whole
personality.
different thing, right? That's a whole different thing. But to change, like you said, who you are, asking those questions are great. So let me ask you this. One of the things that I hear too is a lot of and I'm going to switch topics here, but I know this might sound, maybe you don't get this, maybe you do. But for example, let's use extraterrestrials, all right? Because I've talked to mediums about extraterrestrial. And we're seeing that more and more, right? The government has come out and said, yep, we got UFOs, and basically everyone just went back to their cell phone and went, I don't care. It didn't have the effect that people thought it was going to be. However, if there's extraterrestrials in here, whether you're a spirit guide or whether they're actually physically here, I'm just curious, like, what do you think they want? Like, I've heard everything to helping us, becoming a better planet, to destroying us. And like, where's the in between, I guess?
Well, you have to realize if they are actually getting here from wherever they are far more advanced than we are. They are.
Yeah.
And we are probably coming across like Neanderthals to them, especially right now, destroying our planet, the constant wars, the arguments between human and human. So they may observe us and they may want to help us, or they may simply, as the meme goes, lock their doors and take off. We all would love to think that it's like in Star Trek First Contact, where the Vulcan ship lands and shakes hands with Zefram Cochrane. But that probably is not going to be the case because we're not that advanced emotionally. We cannot bring to an ET anything of value. Not yet.
So, okay, one of the things I look at it like is like with my children when they were born, for example, my son and my daughter. Okay, I looked at them like they were not a vessel, but that I get to be like, I can teach them to be good, I can teach them to be strong, I can teach them to be a good person, whatever you want to say, right? Whatever I decide to put upon this child or human being or whatever you want to say. Don't you think aliens would think about that though? Be like, and that's why I know this sounds weird, but like I always abductions. We don't have to get into that whole different thing, but like, wouldn't you think they would want to like bring a group of us in and be like, okay, you guys are screwing this up. Let's figure. And I'm being like, a little playful, but
Would
you know
we
what I'm
need
saying?
to do that with an animal? We are no different from them than dumb animals.
But we do train apes and dogs and horses. You know what I'm saying? We do train
Yes,
them.
but we don't train them to be more aware, more a member of the universe. We use them.
That's true.
The way you talk about your child, you're the same species. You're humans. With them, and we don't know what they look like. We don't even know if they have bodies. Would we necessarily want to have massive conversations with a dandelion? It's a totally different thing.
Yeah.
So are there other beings out there? Of course. Remember what I said about this massive universe.
Absolutely.
Do they care about us? No. Are they interested in us? I don't think so. It would be lovely if it was like Star Trek. I mean, I do Star Trek rather than Star Wars. But I don't think so. I think we're far too primitive a planet to be of any interest to them whatsoever. We haven't even made it out to the next planet yet.
Yeah. So can I get on a different tangent here about
Sure.
Star Trek? I have two of the most fascinating episodes. I think it was written very well. And, people, I believe Arthur C. Clarke wrote on the episodes. I'm trying to think of the other, Isaac Asimov, maybe. There was a number of scientists who wrote these episodes or helped write them. And one of my favorite episodes was, and I can't remember the title, so please excuse me for that, but there was a planet where nobody got disease, nobody got sick, and everyone just kept living. And they came to the leader of the planet came to Kirk and Spock and Bones and said, we have to do something. Look at our planet; it's overpopulated. We can't continue to feed them. We can't continue whatever. You guys got to go in there basically and, well, kill them. Again, I'm being a little playful, but they had to introduce some type of biohazard or some type of disease to kill. And do you ever wonder about something like that, where, like you said, about our planet, where we're overpopulated? I think there's close to 8 billion people on this planet. Do you ever think aliens look at that and ever go, yeah, maybe we should do something about that? Or does it still, nah, they don't care?
Prime Directive. Now remember,
but Kirk
the
broke
original
the Prime Directive
series
many times.
With the original series that was developed in the 1960s. You take that same idea in the 1980s with Picard, and what they would have done is not said, sure, let's kill some, but let us resettle you on another planet. We had grown. So there was that. There's no telling. There is no telling.
Right?
But first of all, notice that Kirk was able to speak perfectly fine English to the people on planet Yetz or whatever it was. I don't know that the aliens are going to come in with a universal translator.
Yeah. That would be really helpful for everybody, wouldn't it?
It would.
So let's talk a little bit about personal growth here and how you can help people. One of the things I want to start with is when someone comes, maybe they ask you, and maybe you're not the one they want to be with for whatever reason, doesn't really matter. How do you advise someone to pick a good, what do you want to say, medium, psychic, however you want to put it? How do you tell that person, like, here's the checklist? Kind of in your book a little bit, right?
That's right. The first 2 chapters of the Psychic Yellow Brick Road are just about that. What I will do to shorten it is I'll give you the example of what I tell people when you go into a psychic fair and you want a reading, but you don't know any of the people there. I laughingly tell people you all have to be good puppies. First thing you have to do is you have to do your walkies, which means you go around and you look at everybody there. You don't have to talk to them or interact, but you'll get a feel for, do they feel like snake oil salesmen or do they look like they know what they're doing? Then you go and get paper trained. What does that mean? We all have flyers, rack cards, business cards. You pick up one from anybody that you are interested in and you go and you sit down, because there are always areas to do that, and read through them. There will be 3 or 4 that you're interested in. Go back and talk to them. If they're busy, you'll talk to their front people. These are people we hire to give you the information, take the money, etc. But remember, we hire these people to say they love us. And the joke I tell, true, is my very first front person was my husband's office manager when he was a museum director. Now, do you think that on the weekend she's going to diss Mrs. Museum Director? No, she's not. But we all do have testimonial books on our tables. And these are comments from people that have had readings. And you go through and read several of them. Are we funny? Are we kind? Are we accurate? Do we have specialties? Children, dogs, dead people? Would they come back? But the last thing is check in at heart level. You are putting your hard-earned money on the table. If the psychic doesn't feel like they have a brain in their head, they really care about what they're doing, or they're going to give you good information, don't go there, no matter how cool the wiki-woo looks on the table. And if nobody there rings your chimes, leave without a reading. There will be someone else, somewhere else.
I love that. I love that. So let me ask you too, one of the things that a lot of people want to know, because, and I'm not going to get into the details of stuff, looks like chakra points and there's third eye and there's this and there's that and whatever. But one of the biggest things I think for health, especially mental health as well as physical health, is like, is there a way, and I know this is not trying to put you on the spot, Corbie, but is there a way someone can improve their physical mental energy for better health? Is there meditation? What would you recommend?
That's like saying, do you believe in food? There's a million ways to eat, things to eat, whether it's an intuitive counselor, which is what we are, or a medical intuitive, or a pastor, whatever it is. Yes, you can improve. Now, are there things like mental illness? Yes, there are. And I am not a psychoanalyst. So there are sometimes I just tell people, this is outside my wheelhouse. And that's one of the important things that a good intuitive will do when it's not in their wheelhouse. For instance, if you came to me with a serious illness, that's not my specialty. I would say, yes, go see your doctor. But I would send you to my friend Stacey Wells, whom I consider one of the best medical intuitives in the U.S. She can literally look inside the DNA of the body. She has seen brain tumors people have missed. She saw my cancer before the doctors did. Wow. So she is someone that you go to. Now you take that information and you go and talk to your physician. You do not say, the psychic said that. But an example of something that I did early was I saw someone who had a grayness here. And I said, why don't you just go get your lungs checked just in case? It's just something there. And it turned out what they had was Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS. And 5 years later, his widow came to me and said, we're so grateful that you told us to go see the doctor because they caught it very early. And we had 4 very good years before he passed.
That's lovely.
But as far as the mental stuff goes, well, I have several books that I suggest.
Okay.
My 2 favorites are To Love Is to Be Happy With and Happiness is a Choice by a guy named Barry Neil Kaufman. Those are the books that got me through 3 bouts of breast cancer, 2 divorces, and the death of my parents. So there are books that will help you. Radical Forgiveness by Colin Tippin. Radical forgiveness is not, I forgive you and you can do it again. It's, I am totally unlocking and throwing away the energy from this. You can too. So there are books that I recommend. No intuitive is going to have all the answers. They should, however, have a good toolbox that they can hand you and say, this might be useful.
Yeah.
Notice I didn't say this might work, but this might be useful.
Right, exactly. Because there is no, everybody wants the quick, in the box, open it, right? It's like, take the pill, boom, you're 100%, right?
And if that's what you want, I am not your girl.
Yeah,
I'm not your girl.
And I love that. And you shouldn't be, because that's, you're not learning anything on your journey. There are some people, whatever you want to say, maybe are blessed more than other people, and you can get into all different things, why or something. But, I don't think you learn anything. I know it sounds funny, but like, I don't think you know love until you have heartbreak. Now, maybe that's a bad way of looking at it, but that's my opinion. Like, until something you love, a person, whatever, a pet dies or something bad happens, you learn what love is, rather than you just kind of go, I love Jim. Like, okay. Like, I don't know. I just always feel that going down your life's path, if you want to call it that, you have to have some bumps or something like that.
That's really just another example of the white room. If you don't have grief, sadness, you won't understand joy.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree with it. Now, one thing is, too, with your books, is there anything in your books, because this is always, I go back and forth, and I have a feeling you're going to, Corbie, what your answer is, but I've read a lot of self-help books and a lot of other books that, just learn in general. But one of the things that I always go back and forth with people is about manifestation. Like, you look at it, you write it down. Tesla talked about this. Nicholas Tesla told about, I think it was 969. Like, in the morning, you write down 9 times what you're 6, in the afternoon 9. And I believe that's it. What is your feeling on that when people come to you and they're like, I'm going to try manifestation? And you agree or disagree with that?
Party, guys. Why would I tell somebody that what they want to do, they shouldn't do? It's not my life. You talk about self-help books. Yeah. That was my first one, called Clean Out Your Life Closet. Clarity, adaptability, simplicity, and making friends with stress. But I wrote it to kind of be the anti-self-help book, because I remember the first paragraph of the first self-help I bought when I was 13. This is 1968, so excuse the language. Judy has a groovy wardrobe. Her makeup is fab and her hair is far out. But nobody likes Judy because Judy's fat. In that one paragraph, hundreds of thousands of American teenage girls were told everything they did was worthless unless they were skinny. And that's the damage that self-help books do. But with mine, each chapter is, here's some of the dumb things I did. Maybe here's a client story. Here's some suggestions. But at the end of each chapter, I have what I call the adventure pages. And there are questions for you to answer. But you can't turn to page 18 and find the answers. You have to look at your own life. It's the only thing that will work. So let's take a look at the chapter on how perfect destroys good. What did I ask you? Where do you beat yourself up most often? Why? Reimagine one of those times with the idea that good can triumph over perfect. What does it look like now? How would your life change if you stopped thinking perfection was the only correct response to a project or a situation. When you realize you've got your own answers, then you're not going to be a victim. You'll be a volunteer, and you can change your mind in an instant.
Again, I'm just blown away everything what you've said tonight, Corbie, because I think it's a great balance. All right.
Thank you.
So I'm going to give you two words here. You tell me what you think. First word is happiness.
Happiness is peace within.
So if someone says, I have peace within, but I don't have the house, the car, or whatever. If you ever
then
had
you
someone
don't
come
have
to you
peace within because you're longing for something.
Yeah.
Peace within is that grounded, centered, I'm good the way I am, and now I can choose where else I'm going to go. But if it's, I have peace, but, then you don't.
Okay. So that's my next question. The word is satisfied.
There's a difference between satisfied and content.
Okay.
Satisfied is, yeah, for now, it's good. Content is a deep appreciation for what you have. Satisfied is, I'm satisfied now, but will I be satisfied later? Content is the present moment.
I love it. Yeah, see that? I love that. I absolutely love that. So before we wrap up, what would you say to a person who is, like I said, maybe going, whether their life is going the way they want it or not, or whatever they're looking for? What would you say to a person that kind of, before they decide whether it's therapy, maybe speaking to a reverend, maybe like yourself, or medium or intuitive like yourself, what would you tell them? What should they do first before they even take that step?
Realize that you are your own best expert. We can help, but you are the one who will have to make the decision about changes. That none of us are gurus. Maybe we're mentors. A mentor pushes you a little further than you think you can go, kicks you out of the nest a little before you think you're ready, but will sit in the audience and applaud you for being better at what they do than they are. Example, Meryl Streep with her Oscar thanking her drama professors at Yale. You've got your own answers, kid. We can help you find them, but you've got the answers.
I love that. And, I think that's what people have trouble with. They're like, what do you mean I have the answers? If I had the answers, I wouldn't be talking to you. But you so eloquently put it is you're helping them. You got it. It's right in front of you. You're just not seeing it, right?
That's
and
right.
Whatever that is.
I can hold up the mirror, but you can close your eyes or not.
Absolutely. And I think, again, being open to that and being receptive of that and knowing change is a big thing. And nobody likes change. Let's be honest. Nobody wants to be told they have to change. And there's sometimes, fine. You don't have to change, like you said, Corbie. Like, you can totally, fine, don't change. That's totally up to you. Yes. So this has been great. I can talk to you for hours. I wish I could. And you also, I forgot to mention, you have a podcast. Are you still doing that podcast?
Now what I do most is TikTok, because there's always a video there every day. It's under the No Bullshit Psychic. And it's not just telling fortunes every day at all. It's very much the kind of talks that we had to keep people going during tough times, how to realign and review things. And I must be doing something right, because I've got 15,000 followers in 2 months. Who knew?
Yeah, of course you do. Because everything you said tonight makes total sense to me.
Thank you.
And I hope to other people too, knowing, again, what's going on with your life and your spirit guides and things you can do to change, to help yourself, right?
Thank you.
So as we wrap up here, what do you have going on, Corbie, that my spooky friends can look forward to? Not only looking at your books and TikTok, but what else do you have?
Well, I do rare psychic fairs these days, but there is one coming up in Saratoga Springs in late April. That's the Mind, Body, Soul Expo. But these days, I love interacting with people. Every Thursday night, 7:30 New York time, if you're on TikTok, Thursdays are either free reading hours or alternate Cafe Corbie. And Cafe Corbie is when we all hang out and it's not a reading situation. You can ask me anything you want about metaphysics, spirituality, psychic work. And you can even ask about me if you want. And so they alternate. Free reading, Cafe Corbie, free reading, Cafe Corbie. But I'm always there Thursday nights at 7:30.
Please check that out. I know I am. We even got like I said, we talk about ours because we didn't get into like spirituality and metaphysics, like you said. I mean, that's a whole different area and a whole different podcast, but I love it. I love it. So thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to join me on my podcast. And to all my spooky friends out there, go check Corbie's all her sites out. Go to her website where most of her stuff is. And yeah, like she said, she's on TikTok and everything, all the different things she's doing. Please reach out to her. One question, though, I do have to ask just to make sure, if someone wants to reach out to you personally, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Best thing to do personally is reach out to me on my website. There is a way to contact me there with any questions they have.
Love it. Love it. Well, again, thank you so much. I know I took a lot from this. And then, like I said, there's so many things I've learned. That's me. I love asking questions. That's why I have this podcast. I've interviewed so many different people and I've learned so much about the world and everything. And I can't say enough. This was awesome. So thank you again. And, hopefully we'll see you around. Maybe we'll have you on again. I did last year, I did a medium roundtable, which was a ton of fun. I had mediums from all over the world, and we just talked about their craft, and we just had nice discussions.
Great. That sounds great.
It was really fun. It was just, everyone had different points of view, and it wasn't like turning into any arguments at all either. Everybody was just like, let me try that, or, oh, that's really interesting. Oh, this is what I think. And everybody's like totally open. And it was
very neat.
One of the best podcasts I did. All right. Well, thank you, Corbie. And again, please reach out, get the help you need. And like, Corbie said, if she's not the one for you, she'll put you in touch with someone who can help you. All right. Bye, Corbie. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.